Hey, Doug Newson here. Today I'm going to make a video on how to take a mouthpiece and turn it into a backbore. So this is an old jet tone, and a friend of mine really likes this backbore, and so I'm going to cut the top off and keep this backbore and thread it so that the backbore can go on another mouthpiece. That's a common thing that a lot of people need. Like a repair shop or something could really do this for people. It's not too hard. I'm going to do it with a die. I'm going to thread with a die instead of threading with the lathe, which is almost as good. If you do things right, you can get a really good centered thread with a die, but you have to be careful. So we're going to start by putting it in the chuck. I already have it in the chuck, and I've already marked off. I want it to be the backbore I want to be 2.866, which is kind of long, but jet tones are kind of long, so I want to keep the length. So we're going to make a scribe mark here. This doesn't have to be super accurate. I'm going to cut it off right there. And then, by the way, this is nice and straight. 4 10,000ths off. Not that it matters at that point, really, but you want to get in the habit of putting things in there straight. And now I'm going to cut it off. Okay, so now I have it in the chuck, and I've got my indicator in the hole, and that thing is straight. Those lines are 1 10,000th of an inch, and that thing is straight right there. So that's 90% of the battle. You have to do to get the throats to line up when you make a screw backbore. You have to make the threads exactly concentric to the throat, so you have to center to the throat, which could be radically off from the outside of the mouthpiece, by the way. Look, see how I had to hold this? Just those little 2 nibs is how you hold the jet tone. Well, that's how I hold the jet tone. I don't know, there's no other place to hold it, but it works pretty good. Once in a while, those nibs are not quite the same diameter, so you have to either grab it really hard and make a dent. But this one is pretty good. I guess that when they made jet tones, the way they held it was by those 2 nibs. It's kind of iffy. Or maybe they had a flat spot there, and after they were done, they turned them into those 2 humps, thinking that nobody would ever put them back in the chuck. Anyway, it's straight now. So now we're going to cut this off and then thread it in the die. Okay, so now I'm getting ready to cut this down and make it threadable. And I know that this part has to be 0.370 diameter, and it has to be 250 deep, this little part that I'm going to thread. So I'm going to cut it 250 deep and 370 big. And I have digital readout, so I don't have to measure, since I've already measured this and I know where this is. But you'd have to measure a couple of times to do this. This would be 370 right here. That's my last cut. Go right up to 250 deep. Then back it off. Now right now, I'll turn my machine off. You need to make a notch here, a thread relief notch, and then you need to bevel this off. So that's what I'm going to do next with the same tool. So if you don't do this bevel here, your die can catch a little crooked. And if you don't put this notch there, then when you thread the top on, it might not butt up against this part, which it has to. So now we're ready to thread this, and we're going to do that with a die held in the tailstock, which is super easy. And if you have a lathe, a die holder like the one I'm going to use is super cheap, like 25 bucks. One of the best deals that you can get. So this is a die, this thing right in here, from a tap and die set, and it has to be a 3/8 by 40. That's this thread size that it has to be. And this thing is a die holder, and that slips on this tube here. See, this part gets mounted in the tailstock, then this part slides over it, so that'll hold it nice and straight, and it can just slide right onto to thread the part. So at this point, I'm going to be turning the chuck with my hand, so it's a good idea to turn your power completely off because you never know what might happen. So this is already beveled, and this is going to go right up against that. I'm just going to turn the chuck, and that's pulling that die onto there. Beautiful, really nice and straight, super easy. And I hit the end right about right there. And I'm on. So now I can back off this way. Nice job. That's all ready to turn the top on there. It's totally done at this point. So, get that out of there. You could probably check it if you don't believe it. And I suppose if you had the wrong die in there. Yep, nice job. It has to be, I always make this about 251 thousandths deep, so there's a tiny little space. You can't really see it. Maybe 2 thousandths deeper than a quarter inch. A quarter inch is 250. So that's ready to go. I'm going to turn my power back on. Then I'm going to hit it with just a couple of little quick nibs of and I also like to hit, this is a abrasive pad, I like to hit the end. That way it cleans up if there's any burrs or anything on the inside of the hole there. So that's done. Super easy. And that's what it looks like. Ready to go. Nice job. Jet tone. Interesting. I never really played. Oh, look at that. I forgot to clean that up a little bit. It's a little ragged right there. I'm going to stick it back in the chuck and just bevel that off a tiny bit. So this is kind of a good time to show you this thing. If you ever need to stick a mouthpiece shank in a chuck like this, sometimes it's hard to center it. So if it's not super critical, which cleaning up this edge right here, that's not super critical. This is a little, I guess you might call it a collet. It's a little sleeve that's tapered out like a mouthpiece there and straight on the outside. So I can stick this in the chuck, chuck it up real quick, and I'm kind of good to go as long as things aren't critical. And let's see. Straight enough for what I'm doing right now. So now I'm going to clean up that little spot. Easy to do. I can do it by hand with my hand tool. It was upside down. Hope nobody saw that. So now we're done. And that's all done and looking good. Let's see what it looks like on, I don't know, let's see. Here's a acrylic top that I made. Looks pretty good on there. mix and match. I'd be interested in hearing how this jet tone backbore works. I made it, it's about a 16th inch longer than a Warburton, because this mouthpiece was about a 16th inch longer, and I had a hunch that it's because the throat section is a little longer, so I wanted to keep that, because that might have been the primary indicator of the vibe of that backbore, the length of that throat. So I made it a 16th longer. Might be nice. It's in good shape. I got this for free in some kind of a grab bag or something. There you go.